Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
They're polite. I mean, they just take the time for you.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
I like the Angels for what they've done for me.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching. Thanks as always to our producer, Jeff Durall. We're in the offices of Ken Loos, High Plains Mental Health Center at 208 East 7th in Hayes. And the first thing I didn't do was to get that new official title of yours, Ken.
Oh, I'm just an outpatient therapist, Mike.
That'll cover it.
That covers it.
Good. A couple of topics we wanted to talk to Ken about on our Community Connection. We always like his insights, and he always comes forth with some interesting and useful information for us. This particular one was gleaned from the New York Times in a Sunday review column that was done by co-writer Arthur Brooks, titled "Choose to be Grateful. It'll Make You Happier." And this caught my attention immediately, Ken, and I wanted to get your take on this that you shared with Mike and Boomer on the morning show here a couple of months ago. Tell us about this particular topic and why it got your attention.
You know, it's one of those topics I think a lot of people realize that when you feel grateful, when you take the time to slow down in your hectic life, notice those things that are going well, that it has an impact on us. But it's so important in psychology and in the social sciences to get data behind that. Even saying that, Mike, and what I liked about the article is it's well balanced. We have to be careful because sometimes in psychology, particularly pop psychology, we can blame the victim. And I want to be careful on this topic we don't do that. It's like, you know, if somebody is down, well, if you would just be more grateful, you wouldn't be down. Or if somebody has panic attacks, well, if you would, that's way, way too simplistic. But it is something that we think about dealing with life stressors, things going on in our day-to-day routine that just can kind of wear us down, that sometimes we forget that positive side to our life, of what's going well, of the things to take a moment to just really be grateful for individuals or for a situation.
Well, now, Arthur Brooks says in the article, gratitude is difficult because life is difficult. Gratitude doesn't come easily.
No, it doesn't. It's one of those things where cognitively and physically we have to slow down, you know, to really kind of ground ourselves. Some people might refer to it as mindfulness, Mike, where we just take a moment in our stressful day and give kind of that balance of what's going on that is really going well. You know, if my children are healthy and happy, if marriage-wise things are going well, if we're involved in our community, if we have other things in our life that is kind of refilling what the stress takes away, that kind of recharges us a little bit, that's really so important. But it's easy to lose track of that in the day-to-day grind. I completely agree with the author on that point. It takes that extra effort.
Brooks also says, beyond rotten circumstances, some people are just naturally more grateful than others.
You know, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is evidence-based, talks about the ability to look at our cognitions and, if we can, to change them. And that's a little bit of what we're talking about. This is a specific example where, you know, it's easy to get lost in the trees and not see the forest. It's easy to kind of forget the whole point of things, or that life comes in stages, you know, those certain aspects of it. And so again, I think it sounds simplistic, and of course this is just part of good mental health, but taking that moment to slow down, look at your life as a whole in perspective. If there's areas of weakness, if there's areas of struggle, acknowledge it, pay attention to it, but don't forget to give yourself some credit for the things that are going well and for the things that, again, kind of help propel you through those difficult times.
And following along that same line, he says, evidence suggests we can actively choose to practice gratitude and that doing so raises our happiness.
It raises our happiness. And they did this great little study. There have been several studies about gratitude, and we know that it helps. But in 2003, where, really getting people to make a short weekly list of the things they were grateful for, as opposed to a group that was writing down hassles or looking at hassles, and as opposed to a group that just kind of had a neutral list. And over time, again, that kind of cognitive thing, whether it's a way before you go to bed at night to just kind of, again, put your day into perspective, put your situation in perspective, it made a difference. About 100 years ago, when I did a thesis at Fort Hays, before I started this job, Mike, I actually had 3 groups where you could read statements that were kind of like positive affirmations, read statements that were depressing in nature, and read neutral statements. And it also played a role. Just, we're talking temporary. This isn't brainwashing or changing someone's personality, but just kind of that this has an effect on our mood. It has an effect on the way we think. And so it's just, as I mentioned at the beginning, always good when some things that we know from maybe personal experience as we get older, when there's data behind it, that actually taking that time to think about what it is to be grateful for. And you don't have to make a shopping list. Thinking about one new thing a day, for example, as you go to bed, or one new thing even a week, to kind of just, what am I grateful for, to kind of keep a master list going, can be helpful.
You're kind of retraining the brain, it seems to me like, kind of like learning the multiplication tables or something, going over something and changing the focus perhaps, huh?
Our brains are remarkable muscles, and like every other muscle, we have to utilize certain connections if we want them to get stronger and to exist. And so, we know this in things like if you learn a language, a foreign language, if you don't practice it, those skills will be lost. If you learn a particular job that requires delicate work with your hands, for example, if you don't practice this on a regular basis, that will be lost. So we know that with our brain, those connections about gratitude, about perspective, about focus, if we don't kind of keep those connections going, active, we can kind of lose ourselves again, and that whether it's the day-to-day hassles or whether that just contributes to feeling hopeless and helpless, which we know is a key aspect of depression. And that is kind of what we're always talking about, for people to feel a little bit more competent and a little bit more confident that they can do things to better their lives.
So what you're saying is that Jeff needs to continue to operate that camera to be able to remain with those skills in place.
I think that's true. Jeff Durall, well, first, was he ever trained with the camera? Did we skip a step there? I think first we need training. But no, he does a great job. We tease him. We're grateful for being able to joke with Jeff that he doesn't storm out.
Or shut the camera off and leave. Nah.
Keep it up.
We will indeed. So you choose to focus on good things. It makes you feel better than focusing on the bad things. Choosing gratitude can bring out the best in those around us. We like to associate, you've said this time and again, with positive people.
Yeah, we do like to associate with positive people, and it reinforces, Mike, what we know, both in the working world and our personal life. That taking the time to thank someone genuine, being genuine, that it doesn't have to be something big, but just when someone does their job well, when they've done something, to thank them, to take that moment to say, I really appreciate that you've done this. When someone in your family it doesn't have to be big, but just does something to really, I'm really proud of you, the way you handled that, or just really appreciate that. We all feel better. They feel better because they've received a genuine compliment, and we feel better because we've we've kind of reconnected in a way, just kind of making sure that we see that perspective. It's not always the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. We need to pay attention to when the wheel is running really smoothly and to kind of put the whole thing in perspective.
Well, and he talks about concrete strategies, interior gratitude, exterior gratitude, and also which includes the positive feedback, and then be grateful for useful things. Talk about those, Ken.
You bet. It's kind of an intriguing way that he's looked at this. He makes the point to make this a routine part of your life, not just, and independent of how you feel. I also like the point of this article. Sometimes in therapy you'll hear the phrase, fake it till you make it. And again, that can be taken too far to where it's offensive. But what it can be useful for in cognitive therapy, retraining the brain, is that if you want to feel confident in a professional job, practice that. If you want to feel a certain way in a relationship that you know what's going on, kind of practice those behaviors and cognitions. Don't just kind of wait for a light bulb to come on or that kind of aspect. He talks about the interior gratitude, giving thanks privately. That's something I think very important, especially in our neck of the woods. People are very stoic and private, and so a lot of times if they feel like it's some kind of a public display, there's a lot of humility out in the Midwest. This is interior, just kind of making that list for yourself or making that mental aspect. Then there's the exterior gratitude, whether it's sending letters to loved ones. He suggests writing that he writes 2 short emails each morning to friends, family, and so on. Personally, for me, that'd be one more thing that would probably stress me out, so I'm not very good at that. But I like his idea, the exterior gratitude, of taking that time to give someone a compliment, as long as it's genuine, not just to say something, but when somebody just goes that little extra mile and you notice, or if somebody keeps a door open for you, to thank them for that.
Could be a complete stranger even.
Could be a complete stranger. Look them in the eye, say thank you. It's those little moments. Do they change the whole world? Probably not. But do they make us feel a little bit better on a stressful day in a stressful situation? I think they can, yeah.
And the one thing that I really clued into was be grateful for useless things, the small things, and going back to what you said earlier, that we overlook, whether it's the smell of leaves in the fall or the clean, crisp air after a rain or something, or the flowers or, the colors, the sky, things like that. Small things we take for granted.
Yeah. Great example here just recently after some snowfall. It was a beautiful morning, sky was blue, sun was shining, and just seeing the backyard before anyone or anything had walked on it, just that perfect kind of pristine, just taking that moment to look at it and take note of it. And then I trudged through it and throw away the garbage. But still, that moment was, just kind of, it was a pretty scene. And it is one of those maybe useless things, but it's these little things in life, looking at the stars at night, the smell of baking bread, or, when you come into someone's home and they've been cooking, and just take that moment, And it's something also I think a lot of people appreciate. You can share that. It's kind of a universal thing to say, oh, this is taking me back to my grandmother's house, or this is just really just an amazing thing to come home to.
And in our last moment or so, if you would, Ken, distinguish between gratitude and happiness, being grateful as opposed to happiness. Distinguish those two for us.
Yeah, happiness is one of those things that I think sometimes as Americans we get really focused on. Sometimes we'll pick on younger generations where they say, hey, if I'm not happy, I need to make some drastic change, and I can't tolerate anything less than happy or what have you. Happiness can be one of those things that are truly, it doesn't have to be, we can share with others, but a lot of times happiness is a personal kind of feeling. Gratitude inherently kind of puts that perspective. We're not alone in the world. To be grateful is to, by definition, be more inclusive. Happiness can be inclusive. I don't want to poo-poo that. We all want to be happy. But sometimes happiness can come across as just kind of a selfish thing. And as long as I'm content, nobody else matters. Gratitude, by definition, other people do matter, and we're noticing nice, kind, appropriate things that are going on, and we're sharing that, you know. So I think it's a broader perspective, and both are so vital to kind of keep in perspective in our stressful lives.
Ken Loos from the High Plains Community Mental Health Center at 208 East 7th, Outreach Coordinator for the center, and talking about being grateful. It'll make you happier. Next time, Ken tells us about stress and an article on helping others that will dampen everyday stress on our Community Connection.
Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
And the Angel Care nurse comes to see me once a week.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
Angel Care has helped to stay home.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.